Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Appa in case you guys are new here, and today I have a different style of video, I guess. This is a voiceover video and this is my first time filming a video like this. So I apologize if it's not my best, but if the audio turns out to be not so good, I might just, do a video with me actually sitting in front of the camera and talking to you guys. Okay, so today we have types of graduate entry nursing programs. And before I break down the types of graduate entry nursing programs, I want to kind of, go through some terms with you guys. Some of you who might not really be familiar with like different types of nurses and just terms in nursing that you might hear every now and then. So let's just get started with the first term, which is CNAs. I'm sure some of you guys might have heard of this, and CNA stands for Certified Nurses Assistants. In some other states, they also call them STNAs, which stands for State Tested Nursing Assistant. Now, a nursing assistant is like what it sounds, a nurse's assistant. So, they'll do something like bed baths, taking vitals, but they're never actually going to give a patient medication unless it's supervised by the RN. So that is what CNA stands for, and this is not something that takes super long. Like, you can take a class for like a month or so, or if you're a first semester nursing student, you can pretty much do what a CNA does. So that is what CNA stands for. The second term I just want to mention stands for LPNs, and this is known as licensed practical nurse. This is different than a registered nurse. A licensed practical nurse is generally someone who also works under the supervision of, other registered nurses. And generally their education level is maybe like 12 to 18 months. A lot of the things that they do are, they're similar to the RN role, but they can't do certain things. For example, they can't really, start IVs and things like that. So that's another term which shouldn't, be confused by RNs, which stands for, registered nurse. So what exactly is a registered nurse? Well, according to the definition I found here at graduatenursingedu.org, a registered nurse is a nurse who holds a nursing diploma or associate degree in nursing and has passed the NCLEX RN exam, which is administered by the National Council of State Boards of Nursing, NCSBN, and has met all the other licensing requirements mandated by their state's Board of Nursing. So someone who is an RN can have their education background at an associate levels, or they have it at a bachelor's level. So you'll hear people talk about ADN or BSN, and ADN would be the associate's diploma of nursing, and BSN would be the bachelor's of nursing. So let's look at some of the duties of a registered nurse. And some of the things that they do are, preparing patients for a particular exam or treatment, providing medication, of course, recording patients' medical histories and symptoms, including observations, health promotion, recommendation, and methods of disease prevention, helping to establish plans of care for patients, teaching patients and their families how to manage medical condition and post-treatment. So what an RN does is pretty much manage a patient either at the bedside, just like pre-operatively, post-operatively, or during the procedure, or if they're not a, surgical patient, then they most likely manage the patient who has the chronic illness or acute illness or whatever case might be. So there are different specialties that RNs can get, like a lot of them, specialize in psychiatric nursing, pediatrics, so forth, critical care. So they do work in a variety of settings. One thing which you guys should know is a lot of RNs don't necessarily work in a doctor's office. Usually you will find LPNs at a doctor's office. And even if you do find an RN at a doctor's office, they usually tend to have an associate degree. So that is something I thought I should, kind of just mention to you guys, just because I feel like there's just a lot of confusion about like what nursing is and so forth. So, I'll put a timeline of how long this introduction was, just so you guys can skip or something. Like some of you guys might already be like familiar with what an RN is. I just thought I would mention that. The next acronym that I want to talk about, and this might be, like the most important to most of you watching this video, because a lot of you guys are actually interested in this field, and this is an APRN. What is an APRN? Well, APRN stands for Advanced Practice Registered Nurse, which means that a person who is an APRN is a registered nurse who is wanting to, complete graduate degree in a specific specialized nursing role, and they generally tend to specialize in a particular patient populations. So there are 4 different types of APRNs: certified registered nurse anesthetists, CRNAs, certified nurse midwives, CNMs, clinical nurse specialists, CNS, certified nurse practitioners, which is my focus of study. That is what I will be doing. So I just thought, it would be good to just introduce these different terms before we talk about different types of direct entry MSN programs. So the APRN roles, you definitely need an MSN. Okay, you guys, now that we have kind of gone through those terms, hopefully you guys understand the difference between the different roles in nursing and just like the different terminology that we use. So now I'm just going to kind of, move on to the main focus of our topic, and that's, types of graduate entry nursing programs, okay? So what exactly is graduate entry nursing? Again, I'm, kind of referring back to my first video that I ever made related to this topic, and this umbrella term just refers to programs which are designed for people with a bachelor's degree and are wanting to be either RNs or APRNs. Just keep in mind that not all of the graduate entry programs are like designed for you to become an advanced practitioner or a nurse practitioner, nurse anesthetist, which pretty much, do have similar duties like a physician or a physician assistant. Not all of the graduate entry nursing programs are designed for those specialties. So there's also something called accelerated bachelor's degree, which is simply designed for people wanting another bachelor's degree, and they want to be registered nurses. Now that's their end goal. They are not really interested in, pursuing like a specialization in advanced practice or anything. So if that's your goal, I would highly recommend checking an accelerated bachelor's program, because those are generally like 15 months long, and then you're just ready to go and you go right into the workforce. So today we will be focusing on obviously master's level entry programs and not accelerated bachelors. So what exactly is a direct entry MSN program? Just know that this term is not the same thing as an MSN bridge program or an accelerated MSN program. I didn't even know that until I did my research on this video, but apparently they are two different things, and the reason being why they're different is because an MSN bridge program and an accelerated MSN program are meant for people who already have an RN license. Today, what I am talking about, which is direct entry MSN program, is for people who do not have an RN license. They know nothing about nursing. They're coming from a whole different background, and their goal is to, be some sort of either APRN or other forms of RNs, okay? So there are some programs which are geared towards, non-APRN MSN roles. So some of these can be either in the direct care role or indirect care role, but I'm just going to classify them as APRN and non-APRN. So some of the non-APRN roles are clinical nurse leader or an advanced generalist registered nurse. They're pretty much the same thing. The only difference is for the clinical nurse leader, you actually have a certificate exam to sit for. You can also be a nurse educator. You can also be a public health nurse, an informatics nurse, a clinical research coordinator, and a nurse administrator. So just keep in mind that these programs are very, very different than, a direct entry APRN program, just because they don't really do the same thing. Like these jobs are a lot different than what an advanced practice registered nurse does. From my understanding, clinical nurse leader or an advanced generalist nurse is someone who has taken some graduate level courses, but they're leaders at the bedside. So, they can be like care coordinators, they help manage a whole floor, but they're not necessarily like, going and diagnosing a patient, which is what a nurse practitioner would do. Obviously, a nurse educator is someone who is, a professor, but they're still a registered nurse. They could possibly, go for like a PhD, but a PhD in nursing is very, very different than like getting a doctorate in nursing, if that makes any sense. I'll talk maybe towards the end. I'll kind of just talk about the different levels of education as well. I don't know. If you guys want to see a video on it, just let me know down in the comments and I'll make a whole video on it. But basically that is pretty much what a nurse educator does. Is she or he, they educate, other nursing students. So they will teach you how to start IVs or whatever. They can either be like, clinical instructors, or they can be actually professors like lecturing in class. And public health nurse is obviously more outpatient, going out more in the community and helping patients out. A lot of the times they can even work as like home health nurses as well, but a lot of them are like very, very involved in just helping out the community as a whole. So that's really cool. Informatics is a little bit different, you guys. A lot of people who go into the informatics field, they tend to go for a PhD for sure, because the informatics nurse that I know of from my school, he's actually a flight nurse. He went to nursing school here at my school, and he went for flight nursing, but he did informatics, and what he pretty much does is he works with the EMR, and he kind of does research on EMR. So if you're more interested in like administrative, helping out people with like the technology part of healthcare, I think this area might be of interest to you. Clinical research coordinator. And of course, a nurse administrator role is kind of what it sounds like, helping run a hospital, doing a lot of, the technical things of like a hospital or a unit of a hospital. So similar to informatics, but not necessarily as focused on the EMR, but it's also has to do with budgeting and making sure there's enough beds and for patients to come and stay, and which funding needs to go where. So just like administration from a business perspective, like nursing from a business perspective, pretty much the non-APRN, I repeat, non-APRN role that has talked about, that the website talked about, my bad. Okay, so now there are direct entry APRN programs, right? So this is what most of you might be interested in on my channel, or my subscribers at least. So what is an APRN? I already kind of talked about this earlier. It stands for Advanced Practice Registered Nurse. Not all APRNs are providers, and by providers I mean someone who examines you and just comes up with a diagnosis. So not every single APRN does that. So that is also something that you should keep in mind. Okay, so the first APRN role that I have here to talk about is Certified Registered Nurse Anesthetist. And this is basically CRNA, and many of you might be familiar with it because this is one of the more popular APRN roles, and other than the nurse practitioner one. And basically this is a nurse who is trained in like acute care and is specially trained to give anesthesia to patients who need them before surgery, and this type of nurse is also responsible for, waking up the patient after they have gone through the surgery. It's their job to like wake the patient up and put the patient to sleep. So it is a very important one. Well, all of these roles are important, but this is kind of one of the more complicated specialization, I guess you can say. But pretty much their job is to work in a hospital setting. You will not see them outside of the hospital necessarily. I don't even think it's legal to give any type of like the main kind of anesthesia, not the local anesthesia, but like the one which keeps you like literally like makes you go to sleep, not the one that your dentist uses or anything like that. I don't even think that type of anesthesia is allowed in an outpatient setting. I think that's why there are certain drugs which are like not allowed at all outside the hospital. And that is why Michael Jackson's doctor, who was actually a cardiologist, got in trouble because he did that outside the hospital. And that is, there are certain things that you're just not supposed to do at the hospital. I'm sorry, not supposed to do it at the outpatient setting. And this person did that, so that's kind of disappointing. But anyways, a certified nurse anesthetist would never, from my understanding, I don't think they ever work in like an outpatient setting. I'm pretty positive on that. So they have a little bit of, specialized training, and because they are expected to work with like critically ill patients, they do have to have a couple of years of, ICU experience. So even if the program is like direct entry, that it might be a requirement for them to, go work as an RN first and then come back to finish the nurse anesthetist part, if that makes any sense. So preferably they would probably work at an ICU or something before they can go on to complete their degree. From my understanding, this particular specialty now is at a doctorate level at the national level. It was just announced recently, so now you will not be able to practice as a certified nurse anesthetist without a doctorate. Like, you have to have a doctorate degree. There's also a debate with some other fields to make this a requirement, but for now the other fields are still at an MSN level. Okay, you guys, I am not gonna go in like too much detail about like each and every specialty, and I'm just gonna, go from top of my head what I remember, but I will put like detail notes and things like that you can look at and take notes for yourself. But yeah, I'm not gonna go in super duper detail. I just thought I should like mention that for each and every specialty. My specialty is, NP, nurse practitioner, so I obviously like know more about that. But like I said, I'm not gonna go in super duper detail about the other APRN roles. If you want me to do a whole other video on that, we can do that. But for this video, I'm just not gonna go in super duper detail. So, clinical nurse specialist, this is actually one of the older APRN roles, and a lot of people today say that this specialty is kind of dying out. It's definitely not as popular as certified nurse practitioner or nurse anesthetist. Mainly because it is not a provider role, although they do prescribe medication, but I'm not really sure what their scope of practice is. So what I will do, like I said in this video, kind of just, put the notes down for you in the video so you guys can see for yourself, and also like put the links down in the description box for articles that you can refer to if you're interested in CNAs. Okay, the third specialty is certified nurse midwife. This is kind of like what it sounds. A lot of midwives, they do have to work in hospitals, you guys, or like a birthing center. Very few states allow home births. Legally, it's nationally, most states require you to work in either a hospital or like a birthing unit. But again, they are advanced nurses, they are APRNs, they do take a lot of the similar classes like nurse practitioners and other APRN students do, but their focus is simply birthing. Like, that's what they're going to focus on. They're going to focus on women's health, mainly, and that's the area they work at. So similar to, like kind of like the certified nurse anesthetist, like they also just work in ICUs and inpatient mainly, and that's the same situation with nurse midwifery. It's like you kind of just focus on women's health, and that's about it. Certified nurse practitioner, this is kind of the typical APRN role that you're thinking of. Whenever you mention the term APRN, a lot of people automatically think nurse practitioners. Nurse practitioners have pretty much the same duties as a physician. In some states, they work in collaboration with the physician. Other states, they don't. I know in the state of Ohio, so my graduate entry program is in the state of Ohio. So here, by law, it is required that the nurse practitioner work with the collaboration with physician, whereas in the state of Minnesota or like Montana, Washington, some of those other states, it's not required from my understanding. So it just varies. A lot of states where there is a physician shortage, nurse practitioners will have more authority when it comes to their scope of practice. Anyways, they do the same thing as physician assistants and also physicians. They also specialize in primary care, acute care, adult geriatrics or pediatrics, or they can also do family, which is kind of a little bit of everything, and that is what my specialty is going to be, is family. So, yeah, I think I covered all of the main points in this video. This video is going to be long, but hopefully this was somewhat helpful. And like I said, I will put detailed notes so you guys can like pause and take notes for yourself when you watch this video. But hopefully these acronyms and these different types of programs help you understand what program is appropriate for you. So thank you so much, you guys, for watching, and talk to you guys later. Bye bye.